Part 2 of the story, I never knew my roommate was a billionaire CEO. If you haven't watched part 1, please do. A few days after that difficult night, the night of the crash, the tears and the rebuilding, Nnamdi did something he hadn't done in a long time. He opened his email box. It was mostly spam messages. Congratulations, you've won $5,000. Find your soulmate in your area. He ignored them all. But just as he was about to close the tab, one subject line caught his eye. Your application to the Rising Funders Fellowship. He had forgotten about that. 3 months ago, he had applied to a tech incubator program, one that supported African startups with mentorship, tools and funding. He had applied in the middle of the night after coding for 14 straight hours. He didn't even think he reconsidered, but now the email was sitting there. He clicked it. Dear Nnamdi Obinna, we have reviewed your application for MobiCash Africa and we are impressed by your clarity, focus and potential. You have been shortlisted to pitch your idea before our investment panel in Lagos. Chuka, who was nearby, heard Nnamdi exhale loudly for the first time. Nnamdi did not shout. He didn't jump, but he stood up slowly, walked outside, and looked at the sky. Then he whispered just one word. Finally. That evening, he began to prepare. He packed his bag, his laptop, and his worn-out black shoes, and 3,200 naira, all the money he had left. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. He simply left a note for Chuka, off to pitch. If I return with the future. The trip to Lagos was a chaos. He took a rickety bus with a cracked windshield. The driver stopped every 15 minutes to argue with someone. The man beside him was chewing roasted corn loudly, and he didn't believe in deodorants. By the time they reached Ojota, Nnamdi was tired, dizzy, and down to 700 naira. He couldn't even afford Bolt or Uber, so he asked 3 strangers for directions and took a downfall that dropped him 2 streets away from the beach venue. When he arrived, he looked nothing like the other contestants. They were dressed in suits, carrying tablets, speaking polished English. Some even had team members helping them rehearse. Nnamdi walked in alone, holding a faded laptop bag and wearing a white shirt that had turned cream from washing too many times. People stared, but he didn't mind. He had come to pitch, not to impress. He waited 5 hours before they called his name. Next, Nnamdi Obinna, MobiCash Africa. He stood up, walked to the front, plugged in his laptop and took a deep breath. Then he began. As soon as he started, the room changed. Gone was the awkward boy with worn-out shoes. In his place stood a clear-eyed, focused young man who spoke like his future depended on every single word, because it did. He didn't use big grammar. He didn't try to sound like Silicon Valley. He just told the truth. Most Africans don't trust banks. Most of them don't even have the access. But what they do have is a phone. I want to turn that phone into a bank. Not for the rich, but for the market woman, the keke driver, the student with a dream. That was why I built MobiCash. He showed his prototype. He showed his growth chart. He showed how he tested it in 3 towns, even without power supply. When he finished, the room was silent. One of the investors, a man with glasses and silver hair, leaned forward and said, "You built this alone?" Nnamdi nodded. Yes. Another investor asked, "Where did you get your funding?" Nnamdi smiled. "Beans and bread, 200 naira per day. It paid for my data." They laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was real. That day, Nnamdi didn't just pitch an app, he pitched a story, and stories move hearts. But not every investor believed. One of them, a tall woman in red jacket, shook her head. This is too early. There is no team, no revenue. It is too risky. Nnamdi understood. He packed up his laptop quietly and turned to leave. Then he heard the silver-haired man speak again. Wait, I believe in this. Come back in 2 weeks. Let's talk terms. That night, Nnamdi slept at a cheap guest house where the tap didn't run and the bedsheet smelled like kerosene. But he didn't care because for the first time, someone believed in him, not out of pity, but because they saw power in what he built. 2 weeks later, he returned to Lagos, this time in a cleaner shirt, with 5,000 naira he borrowed from a distant cousin. He met the investor again. They spoke for 3 hours. At the end, the man handed him a signed document and said, "We are giving you $30,000 and 2 advisors. Build Mobikash, show the world." That was the seed. From there, everything grew. He returned to the university town with fire in his eyes. He rented a small room and hired 2 of his brightest classmates. They worked day and night. And on the 12th of August, at exactly 2:07 a.m., Mobikash went live. The first user was a plantain seller in Owerri who signed up with her techno phone. Her name was Mama Ejima. She used the app to send 1,000 naira to her son at school. That one transaction was history. But as more people joined, as more downloads came, as news began to spread, something happened. Something Nnamdi did not expect to happen. Something that threatened everything. Because success has a price, and sometimes the one who smiles at you in daylight hides knives in the dark. The plantain seller from Owerri was only the beginning. Within 2 weeks, Mobikash had over 3,000 sign-ups. Within a month, it had crossed 10,000. Apps spread like dry season fire. Hairdressers, mechanics, market women, school teachers, people who had never trusted banks were now sending money with a few taps. It was working. Nnamdi did not celebrate, not loudly. He simply watched the numbers rise. He held team meetings every day. He wrote down every user complaint and fixed them one by one. He was becoming a leader, not just a builder. And slowly, the world began to notice. A journalist from Tech Niger Weekly called him the Silent Thunder. A Kenyan blogger wrote, "African has found its own mobile finance prophet." And slowly, the world began to notice. A journalist from Tech Niger Weekly called him the Silent Thunder. A Kenyan blogger wrote, "African has found its own mobile finance prophet." He didn't care for the praise, but one thing he did care about was his team. He had brought in 4 people to help him build. Kelechi, his classmate, who handled the server back-end. Sandra, a UI/UX designer from Twitter. Paul, a soft-spoken accountant from Zaria. And Timi, the one he trusted most. Timi was the guy who had once helped him carry 2 buckets of water back when their hosted tab stopped working. He had been there since the idea was just a sketch on a paper. He joked with Nnamdi, ate with him, slept in the office sometimes, but Timi had secrets. At first, it was small things. The team's shared documents would go missing. An investor proposal mysteriously leaked to a rival startup. Passwords would suddenly stop working. Nnamdi thought maybe it was just a bug. Maybe the system was growing too fast. But Sandra, the always quiet one, always observant, told him something that made his skin crawl. "Nnamdi, I saw Timi log into your personal folder last night." "Why?" Nnamdi asked. "He said he was checking for logo files, but your folder was locked." "So how did he get in?" "That is what I don't know." The next day, Nnamdi confronted Timi gently. "Bro, Did you open my admin folder? Timmy did not flinch. He smiled like always and said, "Ah, I was just trying to help. Oh. You weren't online and Sandra needed demo files. I just checked quickly, nothing serious." Nnamdi nodded slowly, but something felt off. He didn't accuse him, he didn't raise his voice, but that night Nnamdi changed all his passwords just in case. 3 days later, the app crashed. Not a minor bug, a full system-wide blackout. No logins, no transfers, no records. The server had been wiped. Panic began to spread like wildfire. Twitter was full of angry messages. "Where is my 5,000 naira? Bobby Cash is a scam. This is why we don't trust new tech." Within 12 hours, blogs had picked the story. By evening, a major site news posted, "Nigerian fintech under fire. Thousands lose access to funds." Nnamdi did not eat that day. He didn't speak. He didn't even blink much. He just sat at his desk, looking at the lifeless laptop screen, while his office felt like a funeral ground. Then, something strange happened. A private email arrived in his inbox. No name, no sender, just a single line. "Next time, don't change the passwords." Nnamdi's hands went cold. He opened the server logs, checked the IP trail, and there it was. A quiet hidden login from a backup admin account he didn't even remember creating. Created 6 weeks ago by Timmy. He felt something collapse inside of him. The betrayal wasn't just technical, it was personal. This wasn't just a hacker, this was family. He called Kelechi and Sandra immediately. They spent all night restoring a secret offline backup that Nnamdi had stored on a dusty hard drive just in case. They rebuilt the app from scratch, line by line. No sleep, no breaks, just fury and fire. By morning, the app was live again. All user balances were intact. Mobicash had survived, but Nnamdi knew something had broken. He didn't see Timmy again. He didn't chase him. He didn't post on Twitter. He simply removed his access and moved on. But the pain lingered because now Nnamdi had learned something no tech blog ever talks about. The deepest attack does not come from outside. They come from the people you feed when you are hungry. After that incident, Nnamdi stopped smiling as much. He became stricter, sharper, more quieter. He hired a proper cybersecurity expert from Ghana. He brought in a legal advisor to draft new contracts, and he focused even harder. Because now, he wasn't just building an app, he was building a fortress. 1 week later, something unexpected happened. A global investor group based in Nairobi reached out. They had just read about the crash, but they were impressed with how he handled it. They invited him to pitch on a new platform, Africa Rising, top 10 startups to watch. It was going to be a broadcast across 15 countries. If he got selected, the prize was $1 million in funding. Chuka, yes, the same Chuka from Room 206 saw the news, and he called Nnamdi for the first time in months. "Guy, now so you reach here?" Nnamdi laughed. "It's just the beginning. But my friend, the pitch was not the real test. Because what happened next shook Nnamdi's heart even more than Timmy's betrayal. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about apps. It was about someone from his past. Someone whose name he hadn't heard in years, suddenly appearing with a secret that could destroy everything.